You stand in line, check a box, slide the paper in, and walk away. But for many citizens, that brief moment of participation is followed by a feeling of complete mathematical irrelevance once the ballot disappears and polls close. Modern representative democracy operates on a system of periodic surrender. You get a say on election day, but for the next several years, you hand over your civic authority to a politician who makes decisions on your behalf, often with very little ongoing input from you. A proposed civilizational framework called Xcytocracy looks at this setup and argues it has the power dynamic exactly backward. It isn't a political party. It is a mechanical redesign of how a society manages authority. The central law of Xcytocracy is that political authority is only ever lent by the people. A politician never permanently owns the mandate, and the citizens never surrender their sovereignty. To understand how this works in practice, we need to run a head-to-head comparison. This matrix pits the mechanics of current representative systems, which rely on periodic surrender and geographic multipliers, against the Xcytocracy model of continuous sovereignty and exact one-to-one voter parity. Upgrading to strict equality requires taking a hard look at the mechanics. We have to evaluate exactly what citizens actually gain in control and the daily conveniences they have to trade away to maintain it. This visualization illustrates a core mechanic of the U.S. Electoral College. Your voting power is directly modified by geography. Step across a state border, and your individual weight in a national election can increase or decrease based on population density and local electoral math. Because the system awards power territorially, national campaigns routinely ignore the popular majority. They focus their resources, promises, and policies almost entirely on a handful of highly competitive swing states. Xcytocracy replaces this with a strict rule of parity. One citizen equals exactly one equal vote. For a national office, the entire country is treated as a single, undivided electorate. This removes the geographic multiplier. A voter in a small rural town has the exact same mathematical influence as a voter in a massive coastal city. The concept of a swing state disappears entirely, and the raw national majority determines the outcome. That exact equality comes with a cost. Moving to a strict one-to-one system means less populated rural areas lose the built-in institutional buffer that current geographic systems use to protect them from being consistently outvoted by urban centers. Standard elections operate on a single-choice ballot. That design discards almost everything you actually think about the candidates. It also creates the spoiler effect, where voting for a third-party candidate can accidentally help elect the person you disagree with the most. You are regularly forced into a binary lesser of two evils calculation, placing your single vote on the most viable option rather than your true preference. Xcytocracy uses a method called full preference expression. Instead of picking one name, you rank options from your first choice down to your last. We can see variations of this already working in practice. The Irish presidential election uses a single transferable vote system, where citizens mark their preferences sequentially down the ballot. Ranking your choices captures a complete dataset of civic intent. It records who you want most, who you find acceptable, and who you absolutely reject. The trade-off here is cognitive load. Checking a single box is fast and requires minimal engagement. Expressing a full preference demands that you actively research, evaluate, and rank multiple candidates. The most common critique of continuous citizen control is voter fatigue. Nobody has the time to study and vote on every municipal zoning permit or environmental regulation. Our current solution is to elect representatives to fixed terms. We hand them a broad mandate, and they operate for years with virtually no public mechanism to override their decisions. This flowchart demonstrates revocable delegation. You assign your voting weight on specific topics to a trusted expert. If a specific bill comes up that you disagree with, you can step in, override the delegate, or retract your delegation entirely. The vote stays yours. That level of real-time control creates extreme accountability. It also means leaders operate with highly precarious authority. Without a guaranteed multi-year term, it becomes incredibly difficult to execute policies that are mathematically necessary for long-term stability, but temporarily unpopular. Current systems largely operate on a strict binary. Either a politician is convicted of a crime, or they remain eligible for office. There is very little space to evaluate basic civic fitness for holding power. Evaluating fitness requires a permanent public ledger. We must continuously compare the promises made on the campaign trail with the actual receipts of execution. This means raw data must be transparent by default: authorized budgets, specific vendor contracts, delivery timelines, and all potential conflicts of interest. That data feeds into a mechanism called ostracism. This is an annual, structural vote where citizens can peacefully disqualify corrupt actors from holding public power, even without a criminal prosecution. It is a fixed-term removal, such as 10 years, from civic authority. When the period ends, the individual returns with zero accumulated political privilege and must requalify like anyone else. If an official is removed and no suitable replacement exists, Xcytocracy requires that the seat remain vacant. The function might be temporarily distributed, but the system refuses to install another unfit ruler just to keep a desk occupied. This prioritizes absolute integrity over basic continuity. Forcing an institution to function without a permanent figurehead creates short-term instability, but it is the required price to prevent long-term systemic capture. This chart plots the effort required by the citizen on the bottom axis against the amount of direct control they retain on the vertical axis. This lets us map these trade-offs to see exactly what kind of civic life each system demands. Modern representative democracy sits securely in the bottom left. You give up direct control, but you also give up the daily burden of managing the state. This works well for citizens who view governance as a background utility. You pay your taxes, you vote every few years, and check out of politics to focus on private life. Xcytocracy lands entirely in the top right. This structure serves civic optimizers. It is built for a population that demands strict mathematical equality, requires verifiable receipts for every tax dollar spent, and is willing to actively manage their own real-time accountability infrastructure. The friction and lack of accountability in our current politics is a design choice, built directly into the mechanics of the system. You don't have to surrender your sovereignty to a ruling class, provided you are willing to step up and carry the weight yourself.